Well, President Trump has a chance to make history with gun owners, eliminating a 100-year-old law that essentially has locked a lot of people up. And in my opinion, a lot of those people were locked up unjustifiably. Today, I'm going to fill you in on exactly what is going on with gun owners and gun owners that are users of a green plant that we all know about. And today, I'm going to fill you in on how Trump has a chance to make history, but will he actually sign off on this? That's part of the issue, but also it's not fully up to Trump, really. Part of it is, part of it isn't. So we're going to look at how this can be complicated. And I'm going to give you my opinion on whether I think this is even a good idea, to be quite honest with you. And some of you are going to adamantly disagree, and some of you may agree. Whatever your opinion is, leave that down below. Let's go and jump right in. So the Supreme Court has now given the Trump administration until June 5th to challenge gun owners and their use of that little green plant that we all know about. Seems like every time I call it what it is, YouTube, for whatever reason, doesn't like that. And so anyways, you get where I'm going here. Apologies for coming up with stupid language, but you know exactly what I'm talking about. Now, it is quite amazing how many people don't realize that every time you buy a gun, and if you are a user and you're a gun owner and you go to buy a gun, technically you're lying on the 4473, because they've even updated the 4473 to say that under federal law, that little green plant is still illegal. And if you are a user, even in a state that has decriminalized or legalized it, you are not able to buy a firearm. Not verbatim, but that's essentially what it says. If you are addicted to or a user of, technically if you answer no, you're not a user, and you're lying on that form. Now, very few cases, right, that are brought to federal court of people lying on 4473s. The chance of that actually happening are low. The point is, can the federal government actually keep people from using this, especially in a medical situation, and keep them from owning firearms? This is like a really disturbing form of gun control that say that you and your Second Amendment rights can be nullified if you have a medical condition or you use it recreationally in your own home. It's kind of a scary proposition. Now, part of me thinks that a lot of these states, and you notice like the states that fully decriminalize or legalize are some of the harshest gun control states, right? They have some of the most gun control out there. So part of me, maybe the more cynical part of me, maybe not, thinks that some of these states use this and they know that, hey, this is actually going to cut back on gun ownership, right? People aren't going to be as willing to maybe lie on that 4473, and it's some kind of form of gun control. My mind just goes there. Maybe yours does, maybe it doesn't. Let me know down below. Not every state is like fully embraces gun control, but a lot of them, and the ones that have started this whole trend, really are. But the other part of me says, well, wait, have we restricted people throughout United States history because they used this plant or they used any other substances? Bruin laid this out very clearly. It was actually a huge win for us in 2022, even though it hasn't been used quite as effectively as it should be. In this case, it is clear we have not restricted people based on what they do inside their homes, right? We have restricted gun ownership if people are an imminent threat, right? If you're actively drinking, typically, you're not going to be allowed to carry your firearm, right? It impairs your judgment. But the impairment of alcohol and that little green plant are two totally different things. And not to say that the green is actually a totally safe thing, right? There are some links between anxiety, depression maybe, and others, right? And that, of course, that kind of is based on like early on use, early childhood use, right? Especially before the age of like 25. There's other factors of mental illness in your family, right? That unfortunately can be passed down. So there's other factors there. The point is they're two totally different feelings, and your body responds to them differently. But let me put a situation in front of you and you tell me if you think guns should be restricted in this situation. You're at home after a hard, long day at work and you decide, hey, a six-pack sounds really good right now. You drink that six-pack, right? It's going to affect everybody a little different depending on your tolerance. But somebody breaks into your home. You land the shot and you have just defended yourself. Cops come, right? You report it, of course, and they say, sir, have you been drinking? Yes, sir, I have. But that doesn't mean I invited this guy to come inside of my home, right? Should that guy have his rights stripped from him? Or should he have let himself just become a victim because he decides that he wants to drink? Let's say another guy, right, decides, man, it's been a long day. I'm going to light up some of that green. Somebody breaks into his home, right? He draws his firearm. He's able to protect himself. The cops say, hey, have you been smoking? He says, yeah, but I didn't invite this person to come inside of my home. Right? What I do inside of my home is my business. If somebody intrudes or comes in here looking to do harm to me or my family, or let's just be honest, I don't know what their intentions were, then I can take it upon myself and use my firearm in self-defense. Now, if that means that they find a firearm and that green, technically, they could haul you off to jail. You could be facing federal charges if that's the case. But the guy drinking the alcohol, unless it's found that he unjustifiably used his firearm, most likely they're going to say, okay, fair enough. Do you see the problem with one over the other? Now, I think both things should be treated equally, right? If you're driving, I don't think you should ever be doing this. And they've seen in a lot of these states an increase in driving-related accidents based on the use of that green plan, of course. And so I don't think people should be doing that, right? That is, when you put other people at harm with something that you're doing, that's where I see a problem with it. But just the mere use should in no way constitute you losing your rights as a gun owner. And other courts have actually agreed with this. Now, Keyshawn Devon Baxter is the court case that is being referenced here. This is why the Supreme Court has basically given the Trump administration more time. And the Trump administration requested more time on this, by the way. So that is important to what I'm about to tell you. But he was arrested initially because police tried to stop him and he allegedly fled the scene. I think it's actually confirmed now that he fled the scene, but he was never charged with evading. It was the gun and the, what I think was probably simple possession. So obviously fleeing from cops, of course is going to get you some kind of charges, but it's interesting they didn't charge him with that at all. It's only once they found the gun and the greenery that they decided to press charges on that. So there's two separate things going on here. Just because Baxter had both of them on him does not negate the fact that he is still, right, an American citizen who has rights. And in states where this is legal, I can understand why people are like, wait, how can the federal government say that I'm breaking any kind of law? Because I'm not. Technically, you are, but I'm not, right? In my own state, I'm not. So this is where the clarification should really come in. Now remember, Trump said back in 2023 that he thinks there is a link between, I think he said chemically engineered greenery and mass tragedy events, right? But from what I've seen, there's really no link between the two. Actually, we know that alcohol impairs at a much higher rate, whereas the greenery affects everybody just a little bit differently. But typically, the only life that's really in danger with somebody that uses greenery is going to be the life of a bag of Doritos, not necessarily the life of somebody else. So I think it's pretty well known that alcohol is the source of a lot of people losing their lives and a lot of bad situations happening. Not to say alcohol is all bad and everybody that uses it is bad, but let's just be honest, there's some really adverse effects. But yet we don't say that you can't have your gun rights just because you're a drinker. Now, habitually being a drunk is one thing, right? So it's like everything in moderation, essentially, but we don't remove rights historically, nor should they be restricted now, especially when public sentiment has been so strong in decriminalizing and just fully legalizing, essentially, that greenery now. And 70% of Americans agree. Does that mean that you know, it's necessarily right all the time just because a lot of people agree. No, but in this situation, I think most Americans are on the right side of this issue. Moderation is key. What you do in your home is your business. Now, does that mean that Trump is going to turn this down and not take on the case and let Baxter just face these charges? That doesn't mean that at all. But I think it is a huge test for the administration. This could be a big turning point for a lot of gun owners in a lot of states that are taking an unnecessary risk just because they're doing something legal in their state. And to get the federal government and states kind of on the same grounds here, I think would be beneficial for all Americans. Now, of course, Trump can't change the law here. That has to go through Congress. And even, I guess, to an extent, it would go through DEA to, reschedule. And, of course, Congress to amend the Gun Control Act, repeal it all the way around. But in this case, we may see an amendment. So this is a big test for Trump, right? And we want to see a solid case. And I think a solid case that I've laid out here, and others may have as well, that look, gun ownership doesn't stop. Your rights are not negated based on something you do in the privacy of your own home, where you're literally hurting nobody. Historically, that's the way it's been, and that's the way it should be now. There's an easy way to beat all this, man. Bruin has laid it out for us. Now the president, Congress, got to get them on board. We'll see what happens. I want to hear your opinion, though. Whether you agree or disagree with mine, let me know what you think down below. If you like what I do, consider subscribing. See you in the next one. And as always, hold it down.